Hey everybody, welcome back to the Plays and Fades YouTube channel. I'm your host, Gordo Gambles, here today to break down a beautiful UFC Austin slate, and one with a lot of potential to make some money. I mean, I'm looking at it, a lot of chalky favorites, but can't get too much talk on DraftKings, so there's some decent scores, some decent fights to target, and I'm ready to go over it. Before we do, have to address last week. What a beautiful fight card we had. Of course, that main event was one to remember, and maybe I took an L on the under 3.5, but it was truly a pleasure to watch. I hope a lot of you guys made some money, but that's in the past. We're worried about this event right here. UFC Austin 14 fight slate. It looks like a good one. I mean, of course you have the main event. I've been watching Calvin Kattar tape all week. Oh, I can watch that Holloway fight over and over again. But like I mentioned before, there are a lot of chalky favorites and a lot of plays I actually want to target this week on DraftKings. So without further ado, let's get into it. Now, if you want to know certain things like my favorite dog, my favorite cash play, favorite value play, make sure to check out Pub Sports Radio. I'll link it in the bio below. But now I'm going to break down every single fight from a DraftKings perspective here, making sure I let you guys know how much ownership I'm having and which way I'm targeting these fights. Starting with the main event, Calvin Kattar, Josh Emmett. Of course, you have Calvin Kattar, the guy who proved people wrong the very first fight night of the year. I mean, went out there, big underdog to Chikadze, and he looked great. I mean, of course, when I think Calvin Kattar, I just have that vision in my mind, that huge masterclass performance by Max Holloway against him. But what I will give him credit to is he's a very durable fighter. I mean, he's never been knocked down in his fights, but this is where it's really going to be tested. No matter how much I like Max Holloway, he has nowhere near the same level of power that Josh Emmett does. Josh Emmett is on a 7 knockdown fight streak. That is absolutely insane. This guy has power for days. Coming in on a 4-fight win streak, I mean, he's fought some good guys, but this is going to be a step up in competition. Calvin Kattar is an incredible boxer, and whereas Max Holloway may have had the volume advantage on him, not going to happen here. Calvin Kattar is going to walk forward, put together incredible combinations, and I truly think he's not only the more durable fighter, but he's also the minute winner here. It's going to be Josh Emmett's first 25-minute fight. I don't even think it goes that far. I'm big on Calvin Kattar this week, and let me tell you why. It comes down to a battle of the guy who hasn't been knocked down versus the guy who knocks people down. And I truly think that despite the amount of damage that Calvin Kattar has taken, he is able to withstand a lot of damage here. He's tough. I think he will be winning the minutes. I do think that Josh Emmett is pretty hittable, and durability isn't really a question here between the two. So give me Calvin Kattar. I do think it goes towards the later rounds. I mean, I do know that Calvin Kattar is going to be able to put up those striking numbers. He's going to be a very accurate puncher. We know that from him. He's going to put a pace that Josh Emmett has never fought before. Kattar put up 121 points against Chikadze last time out, and I don't think that's out of the realm of possibilities. Once again, give me Calvin Kattar. I'm going to predict a 5th round stoppage from him this time out. I do have a bet on this fight, so make sure to check out the CurrentMMA YouTube channel for it, but DraftKings perspective, give me the favorite in Calvin Kattar. Give me to accrue points. However, I will have slight ownership on Emmett because his path to victory is landing one of those big power punches, and that will also score well. I just don't see it happening a lot of the time. I just mentioned that CurrentMMA channel, and I do my best bets there. This is a week that I'm really struggling to find volume. I mean, I only have 3 bets locked up as of right now, and I recorded my CurrentMMA video earlier, and one of the bets I do have is violence in this next one. The next fight we're targeting, Albert Duraev, Joaquin Buckley. If you guys don't know who Buckley is, you know who he is. Just look at this clip right here. He's well renowned for that amazing viral knockout of the year over Impa Kasanganay, but he's getting a tough test here in Albert Duraev. Albert Duraev only had 1 fight in the UFC. Yes, he won, but he didn't live up to the hype. Let's just say that. He didn't go out there and grapple actively against Kopylov, and he won a decision while everyone thought he was going to steamroll right through him. But simply enough, this is going to be a grappler versus striker bout, in my opinion. I do think that the favorite Duraev has a pretty good path to victory. I mean, he's deadly on the ground. His wrestling might not be the best, but if he gets it there, he will dominate. Good top control. Razak Al-Hassan just did control Buckley in that 3rd round, so it's not impossible to do. I do think that Duraev on the ground is very, very alive, but on the other hand of things, Joaquin Buckley is a knockout man. He possesses a lot of power, and it's not like Duraev has been knocked out before. I mean, he just got knocked out by a guy who didn't have the best performance last Saturday in Ramazan Emeev. So I do think that it's either knockout for Buckley or a ground win, either TKO by ground and pound or submission by Duraev. I think this fight ends either way. I'm gonna have ownership on both sides of this one. Official pick, I do think I'm going to take Duraev here just because he does have that clear-cut path to victory. I think he's looking to put a stamp on it after a lackluster debut. However, I would not be surprised if Buckley nuked him early on. Speaking of nuking, Phil Hawes went out there, nuked Jacob Malkoun his first time out, and ever since that, I have just taken L after L on Phil Hawes. Bet Imavov and Dawkins against him. Passed in the Curtis fight, but he's definitely a guy I've struggled with getting right. With that being said, I'm targeting this fight again. I think he's getting a decent matchup in Duran Win by the fact that he's going to be a lot bigger, both height and reach, and he's going to have the ability to score very well against Duran Win. Duran Win, wrestler, All-American, really good at what he does, but he struggles on the feet. He was outstruck by Gerald Meerschaert. It's not like Phil Haas is some trash grappler that's going to let Deron Winn control him. I mean, Phil Haas has 100% takedown defense in the UFC, 11 minutes of control time against Imavov, 6 against Dawkins. He's got a decent ground game in his own right. The reason I'm targeting this fight as a whole is because Phil Haas has 2 major flaws in his game, and that is his cardio and his durability. He was looking great against Curtis until he got absolutely nuked, and that wasn't the first time. Julian Marquez was also this card, nuked him with a nasty head kick on Dana White Contender Series, and his cardio really seemed to decline in that Imavov fight. But there's a couple things that Deron Winn does do right is he proactively grapples. He landed 12 takedowns the last time out, and I do think that pace may tire out Hayes a bit, and also he does throw some very, let's say, loopy shots that if they do connect, we do know that Haas doesn't have the best chin, so maybe he's able to get a knockout here too. Truly, I do think that Hayes is able to steamroll right through him. Either way, I see this fight finishing. I want ownership on both sides just to cover that chin and durability of Phil Haas, but I do think that Phil Haas is a decent pay-up option as well this week. Speaking of pay-up though, Cody Stamann, most expensive fighter on the slate, 9.5K. I do think he's a sneaky play this week, and let me tell you why. He's facing a guy in Wineland, a 2-fight losing streak, both being first-round knockouts. Eddie Wineland's kind of on the decline, and whereas Stamann may be on a 3-fight losing streak himself, he's going to be the better fighter here. He's going to be better on the feet, he's going to have good takedown upside, good grappling upside, and I think that a lot of people are going to go away from him. I'm liking him a lot this week due to an ownership play, and I know he's very, very expensive, but I think people are going to stay away from him because he hasn't scored 90 points or more in his last 9 bouts. There are some decent pay-up options this week, Yanis, Holland, and I think that people are going to revolve around those names, but Cody Stamann may go a bit overlooked. He may have problems finishing people, but if there's anyone you're going to get a finish against, that is going to be Eddie Wineland. He is getting up there. He has been knocked out. That chin is getting fragile. I wouldn't think it's crazy if Cody Stamann nuked him in the first round. I know that doesn't sound like Cody Stamann, but I think that the ownership is going to go away from him due to just his recent performances and the people around him, but I do think he has a favorable matchup this week, and for that reason, I might take a shot on him at 9.5K. Next up, I'm seeing a lot of people this week on Natalia Sylvan, where I do get the upside, the high ceiling at 7.1K. I don't necessarily think that she should be getting as much love as she is. I do think she's a very live underdog at 7.1K. However, not one I'm proactively searching to get into my lineups. Jasmine Udavicius will be the bigger fighter, and where she's a bit expensive, I do think she wins this fight at a higher clip. Not running to roster either of them. But I do think that Silva is a live dog if you need one. However, a dog I think I'm getting a bit more ownership on this week, which is surprising me to say, is Danny Chavez, 6.9K. Nice. He's facing guy Ricardo Ramos, who, where he's a talented fighter, has struggled a bit with his durability, his cardio, and even his fight IQ. I think that Danny Chavez has the ability to keep things close, great leg kicks, very powerful guy, puts a lot behind it, and I do think his ceiling is there. I don't see Ramos finishing him at too high of a clip, and I do think the finish comes more often from the Chavez side. So if he gets a finish at all, 6.9K, he's going to be optimal. I do think he fights a very close fight a lot of the time. I do think he's going to be landing the more powerful punches. So with that being said, I do think he's a very, very live underdog this week at 6.9K. However, the benefit of rostering Danny Chavez allows you to go up there and get more expensive fighters like the Kevin Hollands this week. I mentioned it a lot throughout the week. -200, -300s. There are so many heavy favorites this week, a lot of, let's say, parlay pieces. However, if you want to go up there and think about someone who has a lot of finishing upside and the ability to live up to that -300 price tag, Kevin Holland's going to be one of them. 8.9K. He's had a kind of decline of activity since that huge stretch of fights in 2021, but he's drawing the matchup of Tim Dirty Bird Means, and I think that he has the ability to score very well in the process. He's taking this seriously, he's cutting down, he will be the bigger fighter, and it's not like Tim Means hasn't been finished before. Now, if you told me that Tim Means was going to come out there and just grapple proactively for 15 minutes, maybe I'd take the shot on him, but the only guys to be able to control Kevin Holland have been Thiago Santos, Marvin Vettori, Derek Brunson, some elite level guys on the ground, and I just think that Kevin Holland is going to be able to be dangerous for as long as this fight lasts. It's not like Kevin Holland has put up 100 points before in the UFC. I do think he's able to get 10 times his salary, no problem here in a win, and I'm going to pick him to knock out Tim Means this weekend. And the last fight I want to talk about, I'm going to call it my dart throw this weekend because I don't think she's going to get that much ownership, and rightfully so. Gloria DePaula, 9.2K. I do think she's sneaky this week just because her opponent is not spectacular. Facing Maria Oliveira and only had one fight in the UFC, hasn't looked great, but I do think this is just a layup spot for DePaula. She hasn't had the most beautiful run in her own right. 3 fights, 1 and 2, but I do think she's fought the better competition, has the higher ceiling, and has a clear path to victory on the ground. Maria Oliveira looks to be absolutely abysmal on the ground. With all the bigger names like I mentioned, Kattar, Holland, Yanis, people are going to revolve around them. I think Gloria DePaula is going a bit overlooked this weekend just because of the level of competition this fight is. But her path to victory score is high. I do think that she's a much better fighter, fought the much better competition, and has the ability to score very well. So give me Gloria DePaula as a sneaky play. Not one I'm going to have huge ownership in, but I do think she's a sneaky play this week that may go overlooked. All right, that's gonna do it for me in terms of my core plays. Let's round out the rest of the card. Yannis, Kelly. I think this is also a fight you could have a lot of ownership in. Adrian Yannis, a fan favorite, going against Tony Kelly, a not so fan favorite. Yannis has been a knockout machine, huge ceiling in his fights, puts up pretty good scores, but she's a guy, Tony Kelly, who's really, really durable and who will probably close the distance and the gap between Yannis, not allowing him to get those strikes out as often and not allowing him to score that well. With that being said, I still think that Yannis is able to probably knock him out in the later rounds because Tony Kelly is so hittable. I don't think that Yannis exceeds more points than the people around him too often. I do think Tony Kelly is tough. I do think he's going to put a pressure on Adrian Yannis. I do think he has decent cardio durability, and I do think he's live at 6.8K. I will be rostering more Yannis than Kelly, but I do think that Kelly has a better chance of making it to the optimal lineup than a win. With that being said, not a fight that I'm calling a core play of mine this week. Daukaus Delice. Daukaus all day. Delice not the smartest guy. Questionable fight IQ. I do think Daukaus has him covered everywhere. With that being said, Delice pretty tough. I don't see Daukaus finishing him in the early rounds. I also think that Daukaus doesn't have the same ceiling as people around him in terms of Duraev, Kattar, etc. So for that reason, I do think he wins and he's a good cash play, but not one I'm running to roster in all my GBP lineups. Rodriguez Marquez should be an absolute banger. Leaning towards Rodriguez. Marquez is super tough. I don't think Rodriguez's ceiling is that high. Might have more Marquez because his finishing upside is definitely there. With that being said, Rodriguez also didn't show the best IQ last time out, so can't really trust him to put up more points than the people around him either. Cerrone Lozone, I talked about this a few weeks ago. Probably one you want to target. I mean, both guys, aging guys in their career. Lozone's win condition is probably a first round finish. I just can't put a stamp on picking a side on this one, so I'm not going to include in my core plays for that reason. With that being said, I'm probably going to have ownership on it. Cerrone's a better fighter in my opinion, but they're both just deteriorating older fighters who don't seem to have that much durability, so Lozone's win criteria will also score well. With that being said, I'm picking Cerrone at 8.3K. McGee, Wells. You have an explosive guy in Wells versus a durable man in McGee. Tough one for me to call. Pass fight for me because I do see it going to later rounds and not scoring that well. I'd much rather have the Cerrone or Lozone fight around them. But that leaves us with the probably highest level fight of the night. I think the Kattar one's probably higher level, but an insanely good matchup between Guram Kutsaladze and Damir Ismagulov. I'm going to lean with Damir. I think it'll be a really close fight, but I don't see them scoring too well either way. I think it's a fight that goes to the scorecards, and for that reason, it doesn't score very well in the process. Ismagulov, 4 fights, averaging 80 points, doesn't score that well, and now he's getting his toughest test to date. It's going to be tough for me. I'm going to pass on that one altogether and just look forward to enjoying it. That's going to do it for me here on the Plays and Fades YouTube channel. Hopefully you guys learned a bit about who I'm playing this week. It is a really weird card with all these minus 200, minus 300 favorites out here, but I think it's going to be fun from entertainment purposes. But if you guys want to know anything more about what I'm playing this week, first of all, check me out on Twitter at GamblesGordo. I'll post my plays, post my bets, and let you know where all my content is. But for all my DFS players, this was purely a DraftKings video. If you want to know anything else about Prize Picks, Thrive Fantasy, use code Gordo, or Underdog, I will have my own exclusive videos dropping weekly on those 3. This week joined by a very special guest, so make sure to check that out, dropping on the channel shortly. And as always, I will have my best bets video on Current MMA and my DraftKings breakdown on Pub Sports Radio. All of those will be in the description down below. But to all those who are left watching this video, I appreciate you guys for tuning in. Make sure you hit the like button down below, subscribe to the channel, and let's make some money, guys. Ding.